being confident in yourself at a young age is huge. When you decide something, go for it.
Welcome to the Royal Flush Podcast. My name is John Overy, the VP of Sales here at Royal Flush. In this podcast, we cover our ever-growing state-of-the-art pipelining company. More importantly, we have fantastic guests in from the local Rhode Island area that ideally cover the 3 I's. Interesting people that have an interesting story that ideally spark an interesting conversation. In this episode, we speak to Justin Lake, who is a local Rhode Island police officer. As you can imagine, I had tons of questions, situational based, for Justin to understand the psychology and the thought behind what it's like to be a police officer in 2023. Have a listen. Hope you like it. Subscribe it. Stay tuned. Fantastic episode. Welcome to the Royal Flush Podcast. We have Justin Lake. Justin, you are the cousin of my wife.
Yes.
And my brother-in-law, Mark, who's been on the show many times and is my partner here at Royal Flush. And so we're kind of cousin-in-laws, we'll say, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Let's start what we do with every guest, and I pre-gave you the question, so I hope you have like the best answer ready to go.
I don't know if it's going to be the best.
Okay. So tell me about your childhood growing up and one of your fondest memories that brings you back to your childhood.
So I grew up in Cranston. My mom and dad ended up buying some property in West Greenwich. I moved to there, West Greenwich, at 6th grade.
Now, see, I have a memory in my mind. You're like 73 years old, by the way. Every time if somebody says how old you and your brother are, like, oh, they're same age, 38, 39.
No,
which is not. How old are you?
28.
28.
Yep.
And they've lived, how long have they lived there now? Like, it's like 15, 16 years, right?
Yeah, so
It's been a long time.
yeah, I don't even
you
know.
moved
It's got to
in
be almost 20 years.
6th grade you went there.
6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been out of high school for 10. So do the math. It's probably about 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we moved out to West Greenwich and ended up starting. I was playing hockey at the time, and then we ended up making a high school hockey team. There was never a high school hockey team in West Greenwich. We created a high school hockey team, and then by the time my senior year, we ended up winning the championship. So,
Okay.
and then after that, I went to New England Tech for criminal justice, and I went there for 2 years. At the time, I was working at Butler Hospital doing security, which was probably the best thing I ever did before becoming a police officer.
Okay.
And then I got hired by West Warwick, and it's been 6 years since I've been on now, and slowly worked myself through the patrol division. Now I'm a school resource officer. I'm also the high school hockey coach for the town.
Very cool.
Yeah, and that's about it. So a memory.
Yes. What's the memory? I want to hear about this.
All right, so there's one memory that I would say I don't even know. So one of them would be I had this weird fond memory of donkeys being in my yard for a birthday.
Like traveling circus
I
kind of
guess,
animals
I guess
came
my
to.
parents brought donkeys to, to the house for my
Okay.
birthday once. And then I don't remember this one, but the story always goes with my brother pushing me down the cellar stairs, and when I was a toddler. And
I have a similar story. I have a scar over my right eyebrow. Very rarely people think it's from one of the kills I've made, but it's not. And my sister pushed me down the basement stairs when I was 2, when I was bleeding. And
so I don't remember that one.
I don't remember that, but I have that story
But
too.
it's definitely a good story.
Okay.
My good brother who became a nurse. So.
Yes, exactly. So let's go to how and when did you know that you wanted to be a police officer? What are there any things, as a childhood growing up, hey, career day, maybe somebody came by, like, did you always know you wanted to be a police officer? Tell me about that story and how it came about.
I always knew I wanted to be in law. So when I was a young kid, I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, really?
And my mom to this day always tells me, go back to school, you could be
Potentially
a great
make
lawyer.
way more money.
And you'd be a great lawyer, because I always like to argue, and I
Okay.
always like to be the guy that wins at the end of the
Gotcha.
And then I don't know, I guess maybe I took the lazy route, which didn't end up being the lazy route. I think maybe if I put the work in at the beginning, I would have enjoyed more of my life being a lawyer. But so I wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to be. I was so interested in the criminal justice system, and I ended up choosing to become a police officer. One day I was driving home. So the story I tell a lot of people is one day I was driving home, and me and my friend Danny, you know Dan, and we passed a Coventry police officer, and we were going pretty fast, and we were actually racing my buddy who was in my truck, and I was driving my dad's Honda. And we ended up getting on a back road, going way too fast, past this Coventry cop. Should have totally pulled us over. And we got on a back road, we're heading home, and my buddy Josh was getting up close to us. Dan tells me, go, go, go. And next thing you know, we flipped the car. And we landed on our roof.
I don't think I know this story at all.
You know that story?
No.
Yeah, so we landed on the roof, and everything inside the car was outside the car. And him and I are both hanging there from our seatbelts. So the seatbelt clearly saved our lives.
Now, how old are you?
I probably just got my license. I was still in high school,
Okay.
so 18 maybe. And from that point on, I said to myself, if that cop pulled me over, I never would have rode my car, right? And never mind that the seatbelt saved my life.
Sure.
And Danny's. Dan broke part of his tendon, his middle finger tendon, and that's about it.
That's not bad.
So that's one of the stories I tell people as to why I want to become a police officer. And it's so funny to hear, like, I hate writing tickets, so I won't write a ticket. I hate it completely. So yeah, maybe, if that cop stopped me and just gave me that lecture on the side of the road or whatever.
Yeah, slow down, be safe. You could hurt yourself.
Yeah, you could hurt yourself, and that accident would have never happened. And that's the mentality I take on the road when I'm out there. You have to beg me to get a ticket. You're not getting a ticket from me unless you really begged me, or you did something blatantly wrong to the point where kind of my hands are tied.
Yeah. Okay. How does someone become a police officer today? I know that sounds like a silly question. I'm sure you could just Google it, but so you're 17, 18, you get in this kind of accident. Maybe you realize the cop could have helped you prevent that. So you've always been interested in it. So what next? What do you do? What did you do to start the steps to say, this is what I really want to do?
Technically, right now, the Rhode Island State Police, you can get hired at 18. Very hard to get hired at 18.
Yeah, I don't think...
It's Rhode Island, so if you know someone...
If you got hired
at 18.
Well, no. What is the legal age to carry a gun? Is it 18?
No, it's 21.
Yeah, so how could they hire you and not even give you a weapon?
So I don't know how they get around that. But so the majority of the rest of the state is 21 years old.
Gotcha.
So you have that time, that break time between high school and college and getting on. So college is obviously the first step.
Okay.
Go get your associates. The majority of, actually all, except for maybe state police in Providence, you need just a high school diploma for state police in Providence. I believe
They'll take
Providence.
anybody.
Yeah, I guess at this point, and maybe we should lower our standards too. But so go to college, get your associates, or military. So you can do 4 years of active military or have an associate's degree, and then you just have to start applying. And one of the best things someone ever told me was paper the earth, right? So back when I started getting, it was still kind of hard. Even before that, it was like super hard to get on. And
I feel like you'd had to know somebody or have a connection or have a...
Back in the day,
my uncle was on this department,
back,
and
that was the way
my dad used to work here, and my other cousin's a firefighter, and we all know kind of the system and the people.
Absolutely. But even when I got on, so I had 30 applicants in West Warwick. Right, people talk. Guys that got on way before me talk about how they had thousands of people applying to become a police officer, and they had to compete. Oh, I had to compete against thousands. You only had to compete against 30, right? So fast forward to right now, we're running a recruitment process. If you want to get in the West Warwick Police Department, go to policeapp.com and apply to us. But right now we only have 7 applicants, right? And that's crazy to think that. We've come so far to, guys that are ready to retire that had to go up against thousands to now we only have like 10 to 15 people applying every time. And it's the same pool, right? So it's the same pool of people applying throughout the whole state, right? You have how many municipalities in the state of Rhode Island?
Yeah, I think there's 30-something cities or towns.
Correct. Trying to get guys on or people hired. And it's just, we simply don't have the applicants right now. And so go to college, get your associates, go to the military, get your 4 years of military, and then just paper the earth, right? And don't be discouraged, right? So I started applying probably at 19. I failed my sit-ups terribly. I couldn't.
I remember you
pass
telling
the
me
sit-up
that
test.
funny story.
Oh, it was horrible for me. I could pass everything else on the physical agility test.
Now, what, like, is it old school? Is it somebody standing on your feet? Like, tell me what the sit-up is.
Yeah, so that's the first step. So you apply, you go to a physical agility test. So I believe it's 20 sit-ups in a minute.
Okay.
Right, and I think it's 29 push-ups in a minute, or I might have those mixed up. And I think it might be 29 push-ups in a minute. And then I think it's like almost like 59 seconds for a 300 meter. And then it's right around 12 minutes for a mile and a half.
Okay.
So I would pass all these other things except for my sit-ups every time, every place I went to. And so the sit-ups were my downfall. It's not the abs, John. It wasn't the abs, although sometimes it thinks like it. It's actually your hip flexors.
Okay.
And actually, when I went to Middletown, I did a test at Middletown. I failed my sit-ups, and one of their lieutenants brought me over. Like, listen, like, it's not your abs. You got to go. You have to do a lot of workouts for your hip flexors. And
So is it like weight workout or more like flexibility or agility?
Flexibility, and it's so you think 20 sit-ups isn't a lot, right? But it's that minute time frame that you have to get them in. So you're pounding them out quickly, and that's what locks up your hip flexors so quick.
Interesting.
And obviously, then you get the stickler guys that you have to have your hands crossed behind your head.
Gotcha.
Your elbows have to touch your knees.
Yep.
Your butt can't come up.
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
You
of
didn't
rules.
go down by a quarter of an inch on that
so
one. It doesn't
we didn't
count
that one. We didn't count this one. So then you pass your agility. You go take your written test, which right now I believe the state of Rhode Island has two different type of written tests. There's mine was more of a mathematical and grammar type.
Yeah.
test.
So tell me what's on this test. What is this something that if I took the test today I would get a 10 on, or any intelligent person could get a high score? Do you have to really study it for 6 months?
Any intelligent person can get a high score in the one that we do in West Warwick. The other test is more like situation based. So if you had to get to Royal Flush and you are at the East Providence Police Station, what's the quickest avenue to get there? And there is a map, and without breaking any laws or anything, what's the quickest way to get there? And you have to, there's obviously multiple choice, and you have to choose to which one. Or another thing is like dispatch has a car accident, a business alarm, or something else, which is the priority of those things. Which the average person may not understand which one's the priority, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hard test, and I think that trying to get the smartest applicant, I think we might be using because you learn that stuff. You learn which is the quickest way to get there and the safest way to get there and stuff like that. I think trying to find the smartest applicant is probably the better way to go, and I believe that's what our test is still. So you get that, and then you get a first round of interviews, which the funny part is, so of course I go through all this, I can't get on the job, right? I'm stressed out. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I should go back to school, stop trying. And finally I get past everything in West Warwick. I pass everything in West Greenwich.
Okay.
Right. So I get on an interview for West Warwick, the first interview. 2 days later, I had the first interview at West Greenwich. Then I passed that first interview. So then they give you the next step is a interview with the chief or higher ups.
Sure.
So we do it with two of our majors and our chief, and West Greenwich does it with like their town managers.
And what are these interviews like? Are these more, if you were interviewing for your job, so we're looking for like personality fit? Are we doing more situation? Like, tell me, what is that interview process like?
So they all differ, right? So obviously there's like what's your strength, what's your weakness, all those types of interviews, questions. What do you think of police officers? What's the best trait do you think a police officer would have? Stuff like that. Well, Coventry, put you in a situational question for me once, and there was no right or wrong answer, whether way you answered it or not. In my opinion, to this day, 6 years later, I still don't know how I would answer that because it's a situational thing.
Yeah.
from as simple as, you pull up to a call, you're driving by, you're working late, and there's a sergeant in the parking lot, and you pull in to see if he's okay, but he's talking to some girl or some guy, and the guy says, "Come help me," to you, and the sergeant orders you to leave. What do you do? And obviously the correct answer is go and help the person. You may be a police officer, he may be a higher ranking person, but at the end of the day, you're there to protect the citizens and everyone. So that was my answer, and of course they come back like, "Oh, you don't respect rank, and you don't follow directions and all sort of stuff." So, so like there's different types of questions, obviously, and there's different types of mentalities. In West Warwick, we're laid back. We want to get the best. We want to get the best out of you. We don't want to frighten you. We don't want to get you all worked up, because you're already worked up enough going into any interview you take. And then if you add on the police nonsense that people put you through, and you're not really getting the true nature of that person. So you have that interview, then you have the chief's interview. The chief's interview is fairly upfront. Who are you? They want to know what kind of person they're going to be. They're not acting like those scenarios or anything like, who are you? Tell us about yourself type stuff. So the funny part is I have the chief's interview in West Warwick. 2 days later, I have the chief's interview in West Greenwich. And the last question that they always ask is, are you in any other application process?
Okay.
Which is a super hard question, right? Because now you're like, I want to get on the job. I personally, anyone at that time, doesn't care where you go.
Yeah,
right?
I'll go to any city, right?
Police officer. And so how do you answer the question to West Warwick saying, are you in any other processes? They said, okay, well, if West Greenwich offers you the job tomorrow, what are you going to do? And then you're like, And I, obviously, so my answer to that was, the town of West Greenwich and the chief of police in West Greenwich has been very helpful to me in my whole attempt to become a police officer. I'm very, faithful to and thankful for everything Chief Ramsey's done for me. I would, but I would probably respectfully take the West Warwick test job just simply because there's more room for growth. It's a larger department. And then in West Greenwich, I answered it when they asked me that. I answered it, I've been wanting to become a police officer my entire life. I'm going to take the first town to offer me the position. Right?
Sure.
So that was kind of my way out of getting that one.
It's a good answer, yeah.
So a backstory, the chief of police in West Greenwich is a retired major from West Warwick. So he walks, on the end of that interview, he walks me out and he's like, hey, listen, West Warwick's going to call you tomorrow and offer you the job. He said, I suggest you take it. He said, at the end of the day, if something doesn't work out in West Warwick, come see me. We'll get you a job here in West Greenwich. So that's kind of how. He kind of made my decision for me, which made it a little easier. But I still think I would have went with West Warwick just because it's a busier town. Back when you first get on, you want to be. You want to go.
No, what were you feeling at the moment? Was this your dream come true, basically?
Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, this is the best news I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And then. It was the worst 6 months of my life. All right, so then you go to so once you get I skipped a step. So you have the chief's interview, then you have background investigations.
Okay.
You get the background, or that might be before the chief's interview. You get background investigation. They go talk to your neighbors, call your childhood friends.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. And once you get offered the job, conditional offer of employment, you go to a mental health, a psych test. That was the oddest thing I've ever seen. It's like 300 questions. One of them being, have you ever watched Alice in Wonderland?
That's a question.
Why is that a question, right? And I don't know if there's maybe you can get a psych doctor on here.
Maybe they just throw that in to throw you off.
What kind of pencil did you pick up? Like, they give you two pencils, a small one and a big one. Like, then they write that down. Like, very odd questions.
Interesting.
Right? So, thank God, and if you don't pass that, there's no going back. The psych doctor said that you failed psych, or they give you like a 1, 2, and a 3, like highly not recommend, don't recommend, or whatever.
Sure.
And if you get you're not recommended, like it's done. right? You're not going to go to another police department and apply there, and you're going to be like, oh, what happened to the last time you applied? I failed the psych. They're not even going to give you the chance.
Like, this guy's a fruitcake. He can't come work here.
So, then you do that. Then you go to a 6-month police academy.
Okay. Now, is that police academy specific to the city or town, or is that like the state of Rhode Island Police Academy?
So Providence has their own police academy.
Okay.
Which makes sense. They're putting
The biggest
big
city,
groups
yeah.
of officers through. State police have their own police academy. And then there's the Rhode Island Municipal Police Academy.
Okay. And you can only get in that if you are technically hired and already a police officer.
Correct. So you get hired by the town sponsors you to go to that.
Okay.
Down south, you can put yourself through the police academy.
Gotcha.
Pay for it, get your accreditation, get your certifications through the police academy, and then apply to other departments.
Gotcha.
But they also have sponsorships too. That you get hired and sponsor you through.
Sure.
So yeah, that was 6 months of waking up in the morning. You get to go home at the end of the night. So you wake up in the morning and you're like, what am I putting myself through?
Is it like in the movies? Like what? Tell me what's.
It's boot camp times 2.
Yeah.
We've had they tell you stories about they've had multiple military people go through and be like, this is 10 times worse.
Really?
There's just the PT alone. Even I've never been the PT stud, right? But I've held my own, right? But the PT alone, the games that they play with you, and they put you through these games of stress to get you so highly stressed. To see if you can take it, because the job is a hard job, and if you can't handle the stress, you're going to snap at some point.
Well, it's going to affect your decision-making ability, right?
Right. So if you can handle the controlled environment stress that they're putting on you, right? They can't kill you. They can't hurt you. They can't, break any of your bones, right? So it's a controlled environment.
So when you say stress, what type of stress? Give me.
Just mental stress. Like
Okay.
if they put you through this, screaming and yelling and PT abuse, that's what I would call it, right?
Just work you out to exhaustion.
To the point where you can't even stand anymore. And now you got this guy screaming at you because you're not doing the push-up right. But I just did 300 push-ups.
Yeah.
Of course I'm not going to do the push-up right.
Yeah.
Right? Or that, then they tell you to do a pull-up after doing 300 push-ups.
You're like, I can't lift my arms above my shoulders.
So, if you are able to take that and pass through that. So about 10, it's a 20-week academy. About 10 weeks through, they kind of lighten up a little, right? And but through that, you have like your law classes, your domestic classes, your ethics classes, your crash classes.
And this is training on the proper procedure on how to handle these incidents when they come up.
Correct. So the point of the academy is to obviously teach you. And then you graduate the police academy, and you become a probationary police officer.
Okay.
You go on, sometimes it's 12 weeks, sometimes it's 10 weeks. You go on a 12 to 10 week FTO period. So you're sitting in a cruiser with another police officer that's obviously a senior police officer. He's been there for a little while. He so for the first week or so, they'll you sit there and watch. You don't say anything. Sit there, let them do everything. You watch everything, and observe. And then it slowly gets into kind of like a 50% him, 50% you, and then 25-75. And then at the end of the last week or so, 2 weeks or so, it's kind of like 100% you. I'm not here.
Sure.
And
he's just watching.
He's just watching.
Now, are you doing mostly routine traffic stops, or is he taking you
It's
on
everything.
any call that comes in that day?
And a good FTO brings you to everything.
Gotcha.
Right. So even if it's outside your beat line, or
Is that field training officer?
Field training officer. Yep. And even if it's outside your beat line or whatever, it's like because I was a field training officer before I became a school police officer, and that's a good call. We're gonna go to it. A lot of times you'll take it. You'll take the report for the senior guy so he can have the day. That doesn't have to take the nonsense call. But it's good. It's good training. I say you come out of the police academy, not knowing anything, right? Because it's again a controlled environment, right? They put you through as many scenarios as possible, but it's not real life. And on the job training is the best thing ever. And these field training is the most crucial part of making or breaking a police officer.
You said that was 12 weeks?
10 to 12 weeks. I think we have a 10-week
Do you think that was long enough, too long, not too short? What are your thoughts?
So I believe it's ours is only 10 weeks. I think it's too short.
Okay.
Right. Even from being, getting trained only 10 weeks, and then now being a training officer, there's a lot to learn in a little amount of time.
Yeah.
You got to think the radio, just learning how to talk on
Just
the radio.
like the mechanics
right?
of the car and what to do.
Learning how to drive the car at a high rate of speed with actual cars in the way, right? You go through EVOC in the academy, but now there's people walking across the road, a dog, a little kid, right? Cars, other police cars coming at intersections. You see a lot of times on the news, like two cops hit each other, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a lot, right? You're driving the police car at 10, 15 miles over the speed limit, and you got maneuvering around people. You got your lights and sirens. You got to change your siren tone because people don't hear it, right? Or and then they're calling you on the radio at the same time. So you got all this stuff. Then you're trying to figure out where the heck I'm going, right? You're brand new. I have no clue where I'm going. And
You can't just take your time and just punch in the GPS and put it up.
Well, nowadays, like, if you get, as you get senior, you don't have to use it as much because you know the roads.
Yeah.
But there's just the other day, I was like, where is that?
Yep.
But on FTO you can't, right? You have to figure out how to get there. And then you got the computer, plates. They're calling a plate over the radio because the car just fled the scene with this plate on. So now you're running a plate while driving 10 over the speed limit, coming through traffic, intersections and stuff like that. So, so there's a lot to learn. Driving, radio communications, like the phonetic alphabet, how to properly call out a name.
Yep.
Then hands-on and dealing with stuff. Can we deal with the person that's really stressed out or having a mental breakdown or something like that?
Yeah.
Get off FTO, you have 1 year probationary period, then you're on your own. Now you're protected by the union, and hopefully have a good, prosperous career.
Yeah. So what is that process? What you expected it to be, right? Is and was the infancy of your career being a police officer what you thought it was going to be? So I think everybody has an idea, right? So somebody who's never studied law knows you, but knows nothing about really being a police officer.
Yeah. So I believe that the academy was everything I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be hell for 6 months, and but then getting out of the academy, like you said, is that enough? I don't think it's enough, right? So then you throw this brand new police officer. I remember I got out of off FTO at midnight, and I got ordered in from midnight to 8 a.m. Right, so I get back in the car after my guy left that was helping me. And now I'm sitting there like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm all by myself.
Or like, I'll show up to a call by yourself, and you're like, what is going on? Right? And you kind of just got, it's make or break time. Right? You can still get fired very easily on probation. If you're not working, it's not working out well.
Yep.
And we've done it. We've fired guys on probation because you're simply not, cut out for it.
Yeah. What do you think? You said that. How is somebody not cut out for the job? Is it just how they handle the situations that are brought to them, or is it a whole bunch of other things? Is it I'm not filling my reports properly? Like, what is it? If you had to put it in a couple minute answer, what is it that indicates somebody is not cut out to be a police officer?
So, honestly, like reports, we can get you. We can help you, right? We can get you through reports. We can get you through being able to talk on the radio. We can get you through driving, right? We can figure out driving. It's that simple. It's not simple at all, but that being able to control a scene. And if you go back to the beginning when I told you that being at Butler was probably the best thing I ever did, right? So I, working at Butler Hospital, I learned a tremendous amount of knowledge on how to talk to people and how to de-escalate people.
Yes. I'm glad you used that word because I want to talk about that word a lot.
So they asked me in my interview, what's the best trait a police officer had? And I said my answer was from before I wasn't even a police officer yet, right? And my answer was being able to communicate with somebody, and just being able to talk. If you can't talk or you're nervous and don't get me wrong, when you start out, everyone's nervous.
Of course.
Everyone's nervous. Everyone can't communicate with this person, right? And it's not easy. But being able to, everyone's going through a hard time. Police departments show up only when it's the worst thing in the world, right?
Yes.
We don't go there
when somebody's having the greatest day.
someone's having it for a birthday,
Nope.
right? So it's always people are at their worst point of their lives. So they're escalated, right? We have to show up and be able to be that calm, cool, collective person. And if you don't have that and you can't be able to communicate with that person, even just get yourself through the scene, right? Even if it's not going to end the way you want it, right? And being able to do that is your best trait. And if you don't have that, I think that, in my opinion, would be the worst thing for a police officer, and you're not cutting it, right? Because everything else you can learn, and coming over time, you're going to learn it, right?
Yeah.
I hate when field training officers say, he can't even get from point A to point B. I'm like, he's been here for 3 weeks. What do you mean he can't get to the Dunkin' Donuts on Providence Street?
He'll drive it
right?
enough and he'll learn the route, right?
So, that doesn't, bother me as a training officer, but being able to get yourself through a scene is huge.
I can imagine the trait or the skill to be able to tell somebody, I'm going to take you to jail, and have that person let them let you handcuff them and explain to the process what's going to happen and let you put them in the car. Because that's, right, let's take a scenario where you have to take somebody in.
So
that process,
Yeah.
a lot of people are not going to handle.
Correct.
You're under arrest.
So are you going to cut it out, right? Are you going to be able to become a police officer? Being able to have those conversations, but being able to also go hands-on, right, John? Because we're not, we can try our hardest to avoid fighting and putting hands on with people, right? Because 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to get the guy to be like, listen, like, it's, we're past it. It is what it is. This is what's happening. Yeah. And you can try and get him to talk him into it. The best thing, we tell young police officers to just get the handcuffs on and get them on quick, right? Because
For safety.
For safety, right? And it's not, it's not meant in a cruel way. It's not meant in anything like that. It's just because, like you said, the flip of a switch, they can change their decision. And now we're fighting, right?
And you cannot judge.
Correct.
Right? You cannot judge that person that's 5'1" and 100 pounds.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
That guy could be like a Wolverine.
Yeah. The girls are the worst.
Oh, I bet.
Females are by far the hardest ones because, one, you're a man, right? And you're trying to be delicate and careful with them, right? Yeah. But, they're not, they don't care. If they're going to jail, they don't care a lot of times. Yeah. So I've been kicked in the nuts. I've been
scratched and clawed, right?
Oh, yeah. So, so, being able to flip that switch and turn it on when you have to, right? You can try your best to de-escalate someone, but being able to turn that switch on and be like, all right, well, it's go time. If it, we tried our best here, and we're gonna wrestle till we get you in handcuffs, and that's, a lot of times mental health evals, right? So a lot of times you're pulling somebody out of their house because they said they were suicidal or whatever it was, you kind of, I try my best to just talk them into coming, right, and walk to the rescue or whatever it is, and but sometimes you tell them listen, you're going one way or the other,
sure,
and you give them that ultimatum.
Yeah, you try to give them the
listen. You can walk out to the rescue or not, or we'll have to put you in handcuffs and
we can do it the easy way or the hard way.
Yeah, and you don't want that. No one wants that. We don't want that. They don't. They don't want that. But sometimes in that state of mind, they don't know, or they can't make that decision at that time. And it puts us in a real hard spot because once you say you're suicidal of any way, we can't just leave. God forbid something happens. And, now me and my brother go back and forth about drunk people, right? So you got a drunk person on the side of the road. He's falling all over the place. Someone calls 911 saying, there's a drunk guy who's going to fall on the road and kill himself.
This is why he's walking down the road.
Right. So we get out there and do you have anyone come pick you up? No. Where do you live? What I live down the road. It's not 2 minutes from the house, right? Or even that, right? So you got this guy who's clearly obliterated and has, is stumbling all over the road, clearly is going to fall. No sober adult to come grab him. and take custody of him, right? Because that's the legal part of it, right? And that's the liability part of it. We let him walk home, or even I give him a ride home.
Yeah.
Right. I give him a ride home, and get him inside of his house. He goes to bed, vomits, chokes on his vomit, and dies. Right. Who's the last person to deal with him? Me. Right. Who's getting sued? The town of West Warwick. Right. Because we didn't take the right steps to protect him.
Gotcha.
And stuff like that. So me and my brother will go back and forth because he's in the emergency room, right? And we're not a drunk tank. Well, I get that. Well, what do you want me to do with him, right? You know,
So is that what, if you don't have anybody to take him, you take him to the hospital?
yeah, he's gonna go to the hospital.
Really?
And sober up.
And they're going to give him an IV and
Sober
basically
him up
babysit him.
and babysit him, and and that's where my brother's like, I'm not a babysitter. I'm not a drunk tank. What are you doing with these people?
Interesting.
But the answer is, give me an answer. What do you want me to do with them?
Yeah, I don't have a place.
I don't have a place to him. I can't bring him back to the police station. He didn't do anything legally wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess public intoxication is against him, but he didn't commit a crime.
Correct.
Right? He really didn't commit a crime.
Yeah, and now today's age with the criminal justice system, God forbid we write somebody up for public intoxication. So, but yeah.
Let's go to the word de-escalation. Right? So from my outside perspective to a police officer, I think that is probably the most powerful word. Tell me are there any like tactics, any phrases, any words that are like, hey, we're going to teach you these 5 things. And then how and when, maybe you could tell me a story of a scenario, like how do you know when the de-escalation needs to stop and I need to be that forceful? Like, so maybe you could tell me a story and tell me about some of the things that you would use or do to de-escalate a situation.
So the stop part is probably scenario based, right? There's and personal choice, right? So at what point am I putting myself in danger, or has it become such a safety risk that he's going to hurt himself or she's going to hurt themselves, or someone else is going to get hurt because of it? And I think that's when the de-escalation stops. I know it's hard. I know a lot of guys get fed up with just sitting there talking and trying to work them through it. And again, you got calls coming in. You can't be on scene forever.
Yep.
We don't have many police officers on the road. Town's busy. So at what point that's decision based, right? Did you just have a shooting and you're dealing with some guy that's just being an idiot, and going through a really hard time and just refusing to do everything with you, but you have to go to the shooting, right?
Yep.
So let's go. We gotta go, right? And that changed everything, right?
Yep.
So, but there's no word, right? And what I can say is don't lie. They're not stupid, right? So. You can try your best to bend the truth and stuff like that, but don't lie. They know what's going on. The majority of the time, they know what's going on.
They know they're in trouble.
Yeah. Or they know they need help, and
or that they did something wrong.
And they're refusing to get to that point, right? There's been times where we show up. I can think of one where you show up and the guy. He's upstairs. His dad said, he's off his meds. He's going crazy. Blah blah blah. He's punching holes in the house. As a police officer, right? So what are we thinking right now? Are we thinking that we're going to arrest this guy because he's off his medications, punching a hole in the house, putting his parents in fear, right? Could we arrest him? Absolutely. But what's the end goal here? Like, is putting him under arrest, getting him into the station, and going to the police, going to the judge, the courthouse in the morning? Is that going to help anything? No, right? So let's get him to the hospital, right? So then you go upstairs, you try to talk to the guy, slams the door in your the bedroom in your face, right? So now you kind of worry, like, what does he have in the bedroom, right? So we got to get through that door. Try and talk to him. He comes back to the door or whatever. You talk to him as long as you can to the point it either worked, we finally got through to him, or it's now become a safety risk for himself or someone else. He's got a lighter in his hand? Does he have anything that can possibly if he's suicidal, does he have a bottle of prescriptions now in his hand? Right? So and once you're hands on, there's no going back to de-escalating, right? So it's hands on, cuffs on, de-escalate him at that point.
Gotcha.
Right? So get him in cuffs. And what and like I like to say, I say to them all the time, right? So
once the handcuffs on, the game's over, right? We've played this game, we talked it out, we fought it out. Now the game's over, right? The game's over on my end, so stop being a jerk, right? You have your hands behind your back in handcuffs, right? You're no longer tough anymore, right? So let's get over this, and it is what it is. We're in this place now, and we got to get through it, And that sometimes some people are like, you know what, you're right, like it's over.
Sure.
Some people don't, And what I can tell you is the true criminals, right? The guys that real gangbangers and real true criminals are easier to arrest.
Really?
Yeah,
because they've gone through it so many times, you think?
I don't know if it's they've gone through it so many times or if they know it's up, right?
Yeah.
They got me.
Okay.
Game's over. You win this time. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be back again. Don't worry.
I'll still be driving the drugs through the next week, right? Mm-hmm. So the guys that are real, true, hard criminals. Yes, it's dangerous. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like they're not the ones that we're always fighting with. Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Are there a lot of scenarios where you handcuff somebody but you don't end up taking them in?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just can the handcuffs be used as a de-escalation tactic to calm everybody down? Because I feel like I could be as pumped up as I want, but when I have those on, it's got to be a deflation out of the balloon. Like, okay.
So we have the right to detain you.
Yes.
Right? So there's been numerous times I've thrown someone in handcuffs, put them in the back of my car, walked away. Mm-hmm. Right. Walked away.
Because I'm sure that is literally and figuratively probably one of the most sobering things to do is to be in the back of the police car with the handcuffs on.
You walk away for a few minutes. Now I kind of calm down. Right? Everyone else is a little calm. Mm-hmm. Maybe you walk back to sometimes they're crying. Sometimes like I'm so sorry. It's like, listen, we're not here to arrest you. You need to chill. And handcuffs come off, and we tell people this all the time. These can come off as quick as they go on, right? And we use that verbiage all the time.
Sure.
Right? And we do. We take them off. If you didn't commit any crime, you're just being a jerk. Sometimes it's they can come off.
Yeah.
And we can just de-escalate it. We can work something out. You can go to your mother's house for the night and
go have dinner later.
She stays here, and it is what it is. But a lot of times people don't understand. The law, and you get those, we call them street lawyers, right? Everyone thinks they're a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And, being a young police officer, I got on when I was 23 years old, and they, showing up to a 45, 50-year-old person's house, they're having a domestic, right? I come to the door. Who's this young kid trying to tell me how to
get out of here, pal.
I've been married for longer than you've been alive, right? So, again, being able to communicate. Listen, like, I understand, you can't come in my, or you get that you can't come in my house. Mm-hmm. Like, well, yes, I can, and you try and explain, around United States domestic laws, we have the right to come in your house, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you got to force your way in, right? You don't know what's happened. Sometimes it's the girl answering the door. Like, you don't know. Is he behind her with a knife or a gun? Don't let them in. So you don't know these things, right? So we have to come in. We have to make sure everyone's safe. Everyone's all right. And like one time I showed up to a scene. The girlfriend was visibly crying, and. Is everything okay? She said, yeah, everything's fine here. I said, is your boyfriend, someone else in the house? Nope, no one's in the house. Mm-hmm. The neighbor says 2 people were fighting, right? A male and female were fighting inside the house. And, you can't come in. Well, ma'am, I have to come in. I have to make sure everyone's safe, blah, blah, blah. I come in, I find the boyfriend hiding in the back room, right? Mm-hmm. So he immediately goes off. You can't be in my house. You can't be here, blah, 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 blah. And there was no crime committed. No crime at all. Mm-hmm. Like they simply, at the end of the day, we found out from the girlfriend, they simply were just in an argument over relationship issues, right? And everyone has the right to be in an argument with relationship issues. We ended up arresting him for obstruction for the simple fact he wouldn't answer any questions. He wouldn't tell me his name. He wouldn't tell me his birthday. He wouldn't tell me anything about him, right? So I ended up arresting him for obstruction, right? Because in domestics, right, she could be a protected party against him, and he's got a restraining order on him, so he can't be around her in any way. So we have to know that information, right? So I ended up arresting him. He brought that all the way to trial. I was on the trial. I was on stand talking to the judge about the whole thing. Yeah, he brought that whole thing to trial. He lost, but he thought he was in the right. I'm in my house. You have no right to be here. I don't have to talk to you, right? And the judge had to give him her explanation as to why. But again, that de-escalation, I tried for hours, videotaping me, right? It was probably a 10-minute video that he decided to play in court, which didn't help him in any way.
Yeah.
But it's something, the de-escalation I tried for, we tried for a really long time. Even when back to the police station. He was already in handcuffs, already there, he still wouldn't give us his name.
Yeah.
So, at that point, the escalation wasn't working, right? So, all right, that's fine. It is what it is. You made this decision. Let's go.
Yeah.
Time to go. He didn't fight us in any way. He put his hands behind his back, walked out because he thought he was in the right, but he wasn't.
Let's go back to the video in a minute, but one more question about this kind of de-escalation scenario. Did they teach you or train you on anything, or how do you handle when you're having a bad day? And that could be anything. That could be you didn't get a good sleep.
Yeah.
That could be you had an argument with your girlfriend, or your mom made you mad that day, or you had explosive diarrhea from tacos. Right? I'm not having a good day. So the craziest thing to me about this job, because it is a job, is how you, the officer, are feeling at that moment can affect a million different things. So you're not only dealing with how the person you're interacting is feeling and their emotions, but your emotions day to day. I'm sure there's days where you said, I was a really great police officer today. And I bet you, because I know you because you're not a kid, you probably said, I probably wasn't a good police officer today. So how do you handle when you're having a bad day? Because it's going to influence your interaction with the people you come across.
So everyone has a bad day, right? Doctors, lawyers,
Yeah.
everyone, plumbers, right? Everyone has a bad day. And I think as a family, right? Everyone gets upset about that thin blue line, right? So, but I think as a family of police officers, I think we do a good job. I'm not saying we do a great job, right? Because we have a lot of police suicides, right? So I think we do a good job here in Rhode Island being able to talk to each other, right? So, and that's beyond. So we have peer support teams, right? So you go to a drowning baby or
See
a death,
bad
or a
stuff.
fatal accident or whatever, right? So it's not mandatory, but so for example, we have our police officer jumped off the Newport Bridge, right? Officer Beltran, Detective
Really?
Beltran,
I didn't
he jumped
know
off the Newport Bridge. He was going through a lot.
How long ago was this?
Probably 3 years now.
Okay, and this is a guy that you knew and worked with?
Yeah. Great guy. And he, so then the next day we had a peer support meeting, and it was mandatory. The chief made it mandatory. And it's just very rare to make them mandatory because then they have to pay you. But sometimes they're voluntary. And it's simply if you went to that call or whatever, so that's a different scenario. But say you went to that call that the baby drowned or fatal car accident. And it's simply the people that were there, other officers from Providence, South Kingstown, wherever, right, around the state. But you can sit around, have some coffee, and just talk about everything that went on, how you're feeling, what's going through your mind. And I think that does a lot, and obviously our mental health clinicians are there and stuff like that too. And everything stays in that room, right? So it's not like they can't use anything against you to your administration, they can't fire you over it. So they think we do a good job on that. But beyond that, I think we do a good job talking to each other. Right, so everyone's seen the two cops sitting in a parking lot, right, window to window, right. Everyone's seen that, right. So a lot of times we're talking about what we just did,
Gotcha.
Right? And either how it affected you, or simply like my wife's driving me crazy, and I can't get through this, or whatever it is. If it's this on the job stuff or out of the job stuff, right. So I think that's the best help that we have. I think we do a good job in my department. We have a close-knit group of guys that you can trust to open up to, right? And as long as you the guy that you're working next to, and they know you're having a bad day, a lot of times they'll grab you in the back of the shirt, like, hey, I got it, And we do. We just came up with this like a new saying, is to find a guy getting wound up a little too much, on a scene or whatever. You come up with the saying that we came up with, and it means go grab something from the car.
Sure.
And
you take a timeout. I'm gonna step in.
It's technically a timeout.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I got it from here. I need you to get this for me.
Yep.
Right. I need you to go get the camera.
Yep.
Or whatever. It's something different.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of our way of saying, listen, like you've.
Yeah, I'm observing you, and I could tell that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like.
Which I think can. I mean, I'm sure you would try that not to happen, but I could imagine that can happen very,
it does.
very
Like
easily.
you said, if you wake up and your dog puked all over the house while you're sleeping, right? And your day starts with that.
Yep.
And then you go and the Dunkin' line's 2 hours long, and every little thing. You're stuck behind grandma going 5 under the speed limit, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's day in life, right? And then we have the added stress of the job. So I it's a very stressful job.
Yeah. What is so? You use the word stress. I could imagine that the whole day stress. I'm sure there are things that are like easy and enjoyable. But what is the but I guess besides the physical interaction with a call, what are some of the other stresses of the job? Are there time restraints? Is it maybe some of the the paperwork stuff that What
so I
are
like
some
to
of the
say
stresses?
we're glorified report writers, right? Or high-paid report writers.
Yeah, book reports.
Yeah. So DUIs. What to go with DUIs? They're probably 4 pages long.
Okay.
Right, with so much detail and so much stuff. You can get arrested for a DUI, be out of the police station, and home, and I still have probably another 2 hours worth of report writing for that.
Gotcha.
Right, so, and that's and I'm not the best report writer, but it's something that is a lot of work. So you have report rights. Then those have to be done that night or whatever, and a lot of
right after.
arrests have to be done that night. Then you got like the one that you let hang for a little while because John's upset with his neighbor because his fence got built too close to his property line, right?
Yep.
And why you called the plot. I've gone to a call, John, because the person was upset that their sprinkler was watering their lawn. These are the calls we called the police department for, right? Those are the stressors. There's the stressor right there. Like, why am I even here right now?
Talk about a
why
waste.
did you call the police department? Because they're watering your grass.
A waste of time, right?
Yeah, and resources, right? We can be doing other things. Sometimes your boss might be a stressor, right? And but that's every job.
Yep.
Being proactive. You had that horrible day. You simply just don't want to do anything, right? And being a police officer, you can, you're kind of your own little boss when you're in your beat, right?
Yep.
There's no such thing as quotas, but you have that proactivity. If you're sitting out there and you sat in a parking lot for 7 out of your 8 hours of your shift, you didn't do anything, you're going to hear about it, right?
Sure.
You didn't go and at least check on a building or,
Yep.
or a store or whatever. Do some type of traffic control or something like that. You're going to hear about it. So there's that stressor. Like, I don't want to do anything today, but I have to sit in this car. And the stresses of long shifts, right? So you have...
Tell me about the hours, and from a non-police officer, it seems weird to me.
Yeah, so we have an 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to midnight to 8 a.m. shift.
How often do you work a double shift?
So police officers don't get paid well, so I try and work a double at least once or twice a week.
Okay.
Right? So you're talking 16 hours a day. When you're on probation, you get ordered to work those 16 hours a day, right?
Really?
So you can't say no, right? So if any union member doesn't pick up the shift, no one's available, no one wants it voluntarily, you get ordered to work it.
Gotcha.
We just went through a major hiring and employment issue, right? So we were down about...
You're understaffed.
We were understaffed. We were down
Like every business in the world,
yeah.
right?
So we were down about 13 guys.
Oh, wow.
And, and I'm in a 50-man department. That's a lot, right?
Yeah, 25%.
So, we were holding guys in place. They got promoted to a detective, but you got to stay in patrol, and you're getting hit for a minimum of 12 hours a day, every day. There was days that there was weeks that I did not work 12 hours a day, every day.
Wow.
Or 16 hours a day, right?
Now, how productive can you be on hour 9, 10, 11, and 12?
Or 15 or 16, right? So, I think there was a general understanding from our bosses that we're kind of really understaffed. Our guys are tired. We'd rather them be safe, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think for the last 2 years or whatever, we've really laid on our guys too hard because of the fact that we know everyone's tired. We know everyone's, we don't expect that productivity out of people.
Yeah.
So
You're doing the best you can, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Again, that goes back to the perception of the job, right? That's crazy to me, is that people have a very, very, very high standard, as I'm sure you know, I don't have to tell you, of what a police officer does and how they handle themselves.
So you talk about standards, John. So how many times a year do you think a police officer trains with their firearm? The average police officer. How many times a year do you think the average police officer trains with their firearm?
I hope it's the other way, but I'm going to say it's very, very, very low. So maybe once a year, standard training for an hour or two?
Yep. So we have a 4-hour training in the spring and a 4-hour training in the fall. One that includes shooting at night, so we can get qualified.
So 8 hours.
Yeah. So 8 hours total for to be a police officer a year, and that's unless you're a guy that goes out to mid-state gun or you have a
and you enjoy it,
and you want to shoot your gun in practice, that's the minimum. Right, and then you have I'm on the SWAT team. So the SWAT team we train twice a month for 4 hours.
You got cool uniforms and gears and stuff.
Oh yeah,
you're on it for that, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, the goal is never to pull that weapon out. But so you, as a police officer, am I understanding correctly that you think that is significantly lower than what it should be?
Absolutely. But it comes down to funding, right? So let's defund the police, but we want you to shoot them in the arm, right? But we're only going to allow you to train for 8 hours.
I'm not a sniper,
Yeah, exactly, right? So I want you to shoot him in the arm.
Sharpshooter.
Shoot him in the arm or shoot him in the leg. Like, why'd you have to shoot him? We shoot for center mass, right? The only time we're firing our weapon is to stop the threat, right? So.
And what do you feel? We'll go back to what are you feeling, and what is your adrenaline doing? What is your mental state at that time for you to have to deholster that weapon?
Yeah. Well, taking the gun out is a lot. People think it stays in there forever, but is almost twice a week, probably 3 times a week, you're taking that gun out for some reason, right? Whether it's you're pointing it at someone or searching a house, right? Your security alarm goes off, goes to the police department. The police department arrives, the door's unlocked. We have to go in. We have to check the house, right?
Sure.
So check the house. Your gun's out.
It's dark.
You don't know who's in there. You don't know who's in there, right?
Yeah.
So your gun's automatically out. But say this building goes. The alarm goes off. That's a big building to search.
Yeah, it is. A lot of the crevices, right?
Yeah. So your gun's out.
Is the gun mostly? I don't know if this is my perspective. Is the gun taught to be used as an intimidation tactic, or it's only to be taken out to be? It can't only be taken out to be used. So what's? Tell me what is the goal of the gun to be taken out?
If your gun's out, you got to be ready to use it.
Okay,
There's a reason why your gun's out.
Yep.
Right? It's to the point, whatever it is, at that point that it's deemed necessary to have your firearm.
And now, is that in the eye of the beholder? So, for instance, we're writing up a report. If I take my gun out and I write up a report and I've got my hierarchy, can I quote unquote get in trouble for deholstering my weapon in a scenario that was maybe completely inappropriate deemed by other people?
Showing up to the lemonade stand with your gun out, you're gonna get in trouble, right? But you know when it's if the guy clearly has no weapons or anything like that. You're not pulling your gun out. Yes, you're going to get in trouble, right?
Gotcha.
Just because he's escalated or under the influence of any type of bath salts or whatever it is, right? You can't just pull your gun out for no reason, right? There's got to be some type of threat.
Gotcha.
Right, or unknown threat, right? Especially in this building is an unknown threat.
Gotcha.
We got a security alarm came off, the door's unlocked, right? There very well could be someone in here.
Yeah.
Right, so there's an unknown threat in here. Does that mean you're going to use it? No, you're going to use those de-escalation skills that we spoke of and try and, but in the end of the day, if you need to, it's already out, right?
Yeah.
So people always say, why'd you shoot the guy with the knife, right?
Sure. Yep.
Right, so you can close the gap, like a 20-foot gap,
In a really short period of time, right?
in like 3 seconds or under 3 seconds or like that. So how quick do you think a police officer can get his gun out of his holster? Guy's running out with a knife.
Yep.
Gun out of his holster and up and ready to be able to defend himself,
Yep.
right? So, those like people are like, why'd you shoot the guy with a knife? He's going to stab me.
Yeah. Yeah. God forbid. I mean, you're not a robot. God forbid you fumble and you don't
Correct.
grab it
Yeah, or quick enough or
in
whatever.
the right
So,
position or grab it quick enough.
So I mean, there's if it's out, you should know that it's to the point where I may have to use this.
Gotcha.
Right? It's not you're not pulling it out because,
I want to show it to you.
I want to intimidate you
Yeah.
in some way. No. Our presence is an intimidation factor. And
Okay.
9 times out of
Not
10
the
it should
weapon.
be enough. No.
Gotcha. You brought up video.
Yes.
Okay. I think this
We're
is
gonna go with body cams here,
super interesting. Not necessarily body cams, but tell me about interaction with people filming you. I think this is a fascinating thing that I know I have to assume you and the department is tuned in on.
Oh.
And there's a ton of hundreds of millions of people watch social media videos of people interacting with police officers.
Yeah. Auditing America, right?
Yes. So tell me what maybe your just thoughts and opinions on that, and does it feel weird or different? Do you have to think differently when somebody's oh, what are you doing here, right? How does that affect you?
So, the way I police and the way the majority of police nowadays should be policing is everything's on camera, right? There's a million security cameras hanging off people's houses, in stores, right? Or the little lady sitting across the street that doesn't like police. Very well, you could be videoing you, and you don't, or the little kid that's in high school that mom says police are bad, or could be hanging in his bedroom window videoing you, right? So the way I police is that I'm always on video, right? So it gets irritating, right?
I'm sure.
The guy's got in your face with the camera,
Yeah.
or the girl, and it gets irritating, but you kind of just gotta brush it off. If you know you're doing everything you can by policy, procedure, and the law, there's no reason to get upset. It's annoying. It's more of that stressor, right? So that stressor that they tried to teach you in the police academy. This person screaming and yelling in your face. They just added the camera. Ooh, big one, right? A lot of times I always tell them, I hope you bring that to court with you, right? I hope you bring that to court with you, right? Because it should play it for the judge. I hope you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's usually going to make them look.
Yeah,
bad.
I had a guy. I wrote him for. He backed out of his driveway so fast he almost hit my police car. So I pulled him over, right, and immediately, it was I'm racist, right? I'm a racist cop. They only pulled me over because I'm black, and the camera came out, right? Again, probably would have just been a conversation like, "Hey, man, like,
Just gotta be careful. What
he
you watch
almost
out.
crushed me,"
Yeah.
But he escalated it, right? Yeah. And I ended up getting written for improper backing into a roadway, which I didn't even know was a law. I literally
It's
typed in
technically a law.
Rhode Island general law backing and on Google, and that's what came up. And it fit the law perfectly. It fit what he did perfectly.
Yeah.
And he had a suspended license, and now he's getting arrested and all this stuff, right? So then I go to court, and this guy takes out his phone and he wants to show the judge. He's adamant about showing the judge the video. The judge watched it for about 10 seconds of him calling me a racist pig and all this other stuff. Turns it off and says, "I've heard enough." Right? And simply asked, "Did you or did you not back out of the driveway and almost cause an accident?" The guy was like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Okay, guilty." So there's cameras, they stink, right? But you have to police knowing you're on camera.
Do you guys have body cams or no?
No. So right now, it's still in
conversation with the town and the chief of police.
So is it town specific?
Yeah, yep. So the state of Rhode Island gave like so much money
Sure.
to each municipality that wanted to sign up and get this federal money.
I'm sure it's got to be expensive to outfit.
Yeah, so you got to
Everybody
think,
would.
right? So you got to outfit every police officer with a body cam. And you have to, so I want them. I would love them,
Yeah.
right? It's only going to protect me.
Yep.
I do my job by the law, by the book. I try my best to de-escalate a situation. It's only going to protect me because that person that's sticking the camera in your face, it's going to clip and cut that video
Yeah.
to only make it look like they're the ones that were being abused or whatever it was, right? So ours is going to show the whole scenario,
Yeah.
right? So it's only going to save me. Maybe my mouth here and there might get me in trouble for dropping the F-bomb or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And but logistically and financially, small departments like us simply don't have the manpower for it, right? So say you and I are on a scene and it's domestic, right? And the defense attorney requests the domestic video from both of us. So between getting called, showed up, investigated, handcuffed, back in the car, driven back to the police station, booked, processed, photographed, put in cell block. Hour, right?
Well, probably at least.
So the person that releases these videos needs to watch your body cam, the whole thing, for an hour. My body cam, the whole thing, for an hour. Has to send it through the redaction thing, like, kid's face,
Okay.
whatever it is.
Because it's public record, right?
Yeah, something someone said that needs to be blurred out
Yeah.
because it's privacy or whatever. Sends it through the thing. Then he has to watch it again. So that's 2 hours before watch it again, 2 hours at the end, so that's 4 hours that someone has to sit there in front of a computer and watch a video, plus the redaction,
Yeah.
right?
Plus just the process,
You
I'm sure.
just tied a police officer for 4 hours.
Yeah, I gotta log into the system. I gotta find Justin
Stop,
Lake's
go to the
thing,
bathroom,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Fill up your coffee, right? So it's 4 hours just for one scene that somebody requested. That's a lot.
You almost need an administrator just for
You
video
need
footage, right?
1 to 2 people on I can only imagine what Providence and
Yeah.
Cranston and Warwick how they deal with it.
They have to have a whole tech department.
It's got to be a whole department.
Yeah, a
right?
whole tech.
And
I'm
so
on the video
that's-
tech end of the police department.
So it's a great idea, right? But manpower is what is going to
Yeah.
hold up everyone from getting, because there's nothing that's stopping us from getting them, and I know a lot of guys don't care if you have them, right?
Yep.
They don't have them, so but it's a lot of work, that people don't think about behind the scenes.
Yeah. I could ask you 1,000 more police questions. Let's transition a little bit to, so you were on the beat, they call it. I've heard you mention that. And then you wanted to transition to something a little different, right? So tell me you're transitioning to what I believe what you call as the school resource officer, and why you wanted to do that, what you like about it, and then I want to hear some about your coaching career too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So before I became a police officer, I was the high school hockey coach, which I believe probably kind of helped me get on in West Warwick. So ultimately, patrol is, everyone wants to get out of patrol, right? No one wants to be stuck there for the rest of their career. It's a lot of work. It's very demanding.
It can be draining, I can imagine.
Yeah. So the school resource officer position came up. I was the senior bidder for it. I also have a middle school resource officer, so he's the lower guy. He's one badge number below me. He got the middle school position, and I love it. Right, so it's a cool scenario, right? I obviously have the upper hand than a lot of other officers going in because I am the hockey coach. Right?
Sure.
So I already have 20 kids I know, right? I already have those kids. I don't have to make relationships with them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of already coach, right? So I
Yeah,
walk,
they don't look at you as a police officer.
kids in the school don't even call me officer; they call me coach. Right?
Yeah.
I'm walking down the hallway, hey coach, that's it. Like it's, and I think I've that itself helped me bridge that gap between why is there a cop in the school, right?
Yeah.
So transition over there, I get set up, start of the school year. It's a whole new type of policing, right?
I could totally imagine.
If I ever thought I was a counselor and a psychologist on the road, I'm even more of a counselor and a psychologist here in the school system. It is a different type of policing. Just simply helping a kid get through day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times.
Yeah.
Without getting into a fight or without,
I would think it's really almost more just a, I mean, you are an authority figure, but it's certainly less to do with the badge and the gun, and it's somebody to look up to, somebody
it's a mentorship.
yeah,
And
so maybe to implement some of the rules in a different aspect of a respect from a teacher or a principal, opposed to right. So I can imagine totally different psychology on your part.
Yeah, and it's I kind of have like an open door policy with my students, and my door's always open. I don't ever have it closed. If it's closed, it's because I'm on the phone, right? When I first got in there, I filled my whole desk up with chips, snacks, candies, and I filled my whole fridge up with waters. So I had kids coming in and out. I didn't even. The word spreads quickly around a school that the officer has food.
Officer Lake's got snacks in there.
Go
Go get them.
Go get a chip. So that spreads really quickly, which helps you gain that relationship with the kids, right?
Sure.
So they, if you're just sitting there, they come in, they got to give you a little bit of small talk.
Yeah, you're Timmy, right? Yeah, I've seen you
yeah,
around. What's
exactly.
going on, man? How's
So-
your day?
Bridging that gap, and it's awkward at first, right? Because you're this guy walking around with vest and badge and guns on and all this stuff, and it's awkward at first. I had for example, I have one girl. She's a black girl, and at the beginning of the school year, she gave me a thumbs down, went, "Cops are bad," or "F the police," right to my face, right? And by the end of the year, she was in my office having a snack, right? So I think that's a win, right? So that's why we're there.
Yeah.
I had two kids get in a fight, right? So two kids get in a fight. Mom calls me. I want to press charges. I'm like, ma'am, I'm not arresting your son, the other kid. Why not? Because I'm not. It's the two high school kids got in a fight over a girl. Like, they don't need to be arrested. The school disciplined them. They got their correct discipline from the school. There's nothing more severe. It was just a scuffle, right? And what do you even do there? Was her response. And I told her, I go, ma'am, there's two reasons why I'm here.
Which is going to be my next question. So
And
good.
she goes, what's that? And I go, one is to bridge the gap between the police department and the students of West Warwick, the youth of West Warwick.
Because they were going to be adults in that city and town very soon.
Correct. And the second is to be the first person to get shot when an active shooter comes through the door, when your kid's in class. She shut right up. She said, okay, officer, have a good day. At the end of the day, that's why we're there. There's two reasons. I'm not there to give detention. I'm not here to that. It's to bridge that gap, to make these kids that walk around the school all day think, wow, he's just a human, right? He's just another person I should look up to.
Yeah, there's no reason to be, one, afraid.
Correct.
And two,
Disrespectful.
not ask for their help when they need it, right?
Correct. Right. So that's what we're there for, and obviously the safety purpose. The only if there wasn't school shootings, there wouldn't be cops in schools.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the main reason. But that second reason, and I believe it's done a lot, right? Because you have, I have a major in our police department. He was a school resource officer back in the day, and you'll go to calls with adults, and they'll say, "Is OJ still working?" Right, and that's what he called himself. I don't know why. It's not even his initials.
It was like Bob.
Yeah. They say, is OJ still working? And like, yeah, he's still on. Oh my God, he's a major. Like, oh my God, he's a major now. He's he was so nice in school. Blah blah blah. Right. So and then that's you you could be generating really good snitches. Right.
Sure.
So
yeah.
If they they get out of high school, they really liked you. Right. Their friend did something really stupid.
Yeah.
You go over and like, hey, what happened? And I'm like, oh, don't tell him I told you. But
Timmy's robbing the convenience store.
So
You got $27 yesterday.
So you generate good, solid relationships with the youth of the community, and that's really what we're there for.
Yeah. Let's talk about school shootings.
All right.
I have a non-prospective police way to fix these really, really
Are we
good.
arming teachers?
No, not arming teachers. So here's my opinion. So you said you're a small town. Well, so you're the only officer, correct? How big's the school? How many kids?
So the middle school and the high school are connected.
Okay.
So there's actually
technically 2 officers.
Okay. Do you feel that's enough?
So, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
I think even 1 would be enough.
1 would be enough. Okay.
It's a deterrent. That police car parked out front
Yeah.
is a deterrent within itself.
Yeah. So tell me, I would love for your opinion on my theory. So, after 9/11, the government created, and believe me, I don't think government should get in a lot of shit, but the government created Homeland Security. Never existed, right? This department never existed. They created the Department of Homeland Security, and they said, we have to drastically alter how aviation in the security of our country is treated. They created the TSA, which never existed before, okay? And so this simple, you get check ID, we all know the lines, okay? You never had to do that until then. And that ultimately, the goal is a deterrent for certainly somebody from overseas. But anybody bring anything on a plane, they shouldn't be. Shouldn't be bringing knives, shouldn't be bringing right?
Yep.
So this is a deterrent with the goal of stopping, and knock on wood, nothing crazy has happened, okay? I think the government should create the Department of Education Security
Okay.
with the goal of deterring and eliminating any shooting or casualties happening on the land of an educational facility.
Okay. How are we doing it?
We are doing this directly funded by former military and police officers. Okay? So there's a lot of people in the military that are being put into civilian life that have, whether it's mental trouble, whatever, whatever. You could, again, probably be one of the most effective military people in the world. And we know a lot of guys are working at Subway, right?
Yeah.
Where this can be a facilitation for them to not formally be in the police officer or any other kind of thing, but these guys are trained and they already have the built-in backbone of wanting to protect the country, right? So they've already got that mentality. We know there's the mentality and a reason. And you can hire and do the same thing. We can go through a psych evaluation and we can go through proper training.
Technically creating a new police
a
department.
new police department, but
whatever.
specifically focused on, and I think
sheriff department.
we've got
that's specifically for schools.
We've got a back feed already for what I would consider either be retired or military people. I think would be your number one source of people, but you could just go to the school and train to be this.
Yeah, so technically we have the Capitol Police, right? So they protect all Capitol buildings that stay around. So you could branch out and take those Capitol Police, multiply that Capitol Police Department, and become
an educational
the Capitol Police. You
security.
Can consider a government building, right? Because it is a school, right? So the Capitol Police could be protecting that school, right? So that's where you're going.
That is my theory. What are your thoughts on that?
So that's just similar to the politician getting up there and saying, I'm going to put a police officer, these active shooters, I'm going to put a school shooting, I'm going to put a police officer in every school, right? I agree. I think there should be a police officer in every school, whether it's a different agency type TSA type thing, whatever. I disagree with metal detectors. I don't think it'll work.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So you bring up TSA, I thought that's where you were going.
Yeah. No, not metal detectors. No.
Actually, one kid was doing the school newspaper and he asked me about it. And he's like, "What's your opinion?" And I was like, I don't think they work. You have this mass entry of kids coming in at 7 o'clock because they're late, right? And you get all these kids through a metal detector. It's simply never going to
not the metal detector.
But I think, I think an armed police officer or armed, some type of government armed official inside schools is a must. Absolutely.
And I think it's, right, 9/11 was so tragic and important, but I feel for some reason we all know this is tragic, but like nothing changes, and so that's what I look, right. If I was if I was a senator, this would be one of my things. I would really be like, listen, I want to start an agency. So I think we should allocate the proper funds and put this as a major safety.
But at the end of the day, I think you're by creating a new government unit or facility, you're probably talking a lot more money. Than just dumping money into more municipal police departments and saying, I want a police officer in every school. Right? You already have your policies, procedures. You already have your relationship and MOUs with the school departments and stuff like that. Just so if you made it, and they say, oh, let's make it a Rhode Island law, a police officer in every school, then Black Lives Matter happen again, and they want us out. So the pendulum will swing, and let's just concentrate, in my opinion, on getting our manpower up and getting an officer in every school.
Sure.
Right? And comes with staffing and all this other stuff. But getting an officer in every school would ultimately deter and hopefully protect these students from ever going through.
Now, do you think there should be officers in elementary schools too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do too. So I'm thinking about the life cycle of the kid, right? First grade, second grade, all the way to 12th. And the more they're around an officer throughout their years and they get more used to them and they build those relationships and they become older, that, right, the whole thing for the community just is this life cycle of everything.
It's just, he's a teacher to them, right?
Yep.
He's no different
Than Mrs. Smith.
than, Principal Alves.
Yep.
Right? So there's no difference than, to him. Yeah, he may have yelled at me once, but I deserved it,
Yeah.
But, absolutely. I mean, you got to think about the amount of school shootings that happened in elementary schools. Sandy Hook right down the road,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, yes, I enjoy every minute of it, and, obviously, you never know if your day is going to be that day, right? And that's ultimately why I'm there, and I hope I never have to deal with that. And, but that's where I am, and I'm happy to be that guy that's there, and I know that my training and ability will hopefully kick in the event that I have to do something. Then we go back to, everyone crucified that officer in Connecticut that stood outside and just stood there with his gun and didn't move for, it was an elementary school or something, and he froze, right? And you don't know, no one knows. You could be the SWAT team commander, and it actually is about to go down.
You don't know how you're going to react.
No one knows how they're
No
going
one
to react.
does.
No one knows.
Yep.
So, should he be crucified? Yeah. Should he no longer be a police officer? Absolutely, right? Do you think his mental state right now is any better? Absolutely not, right? So, you don't know what you're gonna, how you're gonna react, or what you're gonna do when you're actually in those situations.
Yeah.
Like you said it before, you could be the best sharpshooter in the round. When you're in that stressed situation, you don't know how it's gonna go.
Yeah. Let's talk about coaching. What do you love about it? What have you learned? How has it made you better? Because I think I know it's made you better. What do you like about coaching so much?
So I like, so we have 3 towns, 2 different schools, and 1 hockey team, right? So I like seeing a kid grow into a young adult, right? So you get them at 15, right? Freshman year is 15. And seeing that kid grow over 4 years, not only as a skilled hockey player, but as an adult, a young adult, and preparing them for life. You become a mentor, a bigger brother. I have kids texting me still from 7 years ago when I started coaching. Right? So, you're always there, and I tell my kids all the time, my phone's always on, call me for anything. I don't care if it's it's not for hockey, right? And I've gained that relationship and trust with my players. That's the best. Obviously, the goal is to win a championship and win every game and all this stuff. But seeing that young adult that young kid grow into a young adult, and better our community and society, whether it's going right into the workforce or seeing them go off to college or whatever it is, that is what a good coach is, right? Knowing that you bettered that person, not just on the ice. Because let's be honest, you ain't going to the NHL.
Yeah.
Division II high school hockey in the state of Rhode Island, smallest state in the United States. You're not going to the NHL. You may go on and play juniors and maybe eventually get to a low division college team. But you're not going to the NHL. So what is my real goal as a coach, right? To be that mentor and be that person that prepares them for life. And I think I implement it. I believe I do a really good job with trying to implement that don't be rude, don't, be polite, be smart, be respectful, clean up after yourselves, right? We came, for example, we were at my hockey rink where we have our own locker room. The kids, beautiful locker room. It's better than some of the Phoenix Coyotes locker room that they had last year. And so, they left it a mess. We go up to Barberville. We play Barberville, Pontiac. They leave that locker room a mess. It was Christmas break.
So I said, I'll see you, practice starts at 2:30. I'll see you all at 10:30 for a respect practice prior to our practice. Well, Coach, what's a respect practice? The captain's coming. What's a respect practice? Don't worry about it. See you at 10:30. They all show up. Split them in fours, groups of fours. And they swept, mopped, cleaned every toilet, every bathroom, every locker room, all the stairs, all the hallways, all the benches, took all the trash out of the entire ice rink. And I was like, we will not disrespect ourselves in our own place or some other city or town's municipality ice rink ever again, right? That's not who we are. We don't disrespect people. We don't, you got to live this life of, you rent, like, I borrow the dump trailer, right? I'm gonna go power wash it off on my way home before,
Bring it back better than what you were giving it.
Exactly, right? So you got to teach that type of mentality, right? And then sportsmanship is huge. These kids are like going through, puberty, and they're all big, bad, and tough, and all that stuff. And being able to teach that of like, listen, you're not always going to agree with someone in life, right? And there's always going to be that person that's going to tell you to do something you don't want to do it, but you have to do it anyways, right? And teaching that, I do that in the high school all the time.
Yep.
Listen, like, you think I want to do half the stuff my boss tells me to do? Absolutely not. But I have to do it, right?
Yeah.
I teach shit rolls downhill to the hockey kids.
Yep.
Right. I get in trouble or someone complains about it to me. It's gonna roll down. It's going last Monday. We had the week before we had about 27 minutes of penalties. We skated for 27 minutes, and when they were done, I brought my captains down to the other end of the ice. The rest of the team went down the other end of the ice, a different end. And they skated for another 15 minutes, just the three of them. And for the simple fact that shit rolls downhill, right? If you're disrespected me, one of them got to a fight. It was a horrible show of sportsmanship on our end, and you disrespected me. Now you guys are gonna pay for it, and you can do whatever you want with the rest of the kids. They got to be respectful. Don't do anything. Don't abuse them or anything like that, or haze them. But it can roll back down to them eventually when you guys are. And I walked down to the other end while they were skating to the kids. I said, "Come here." I go, "Listen, they're gonna pay all year for everyone's nonsense. So when they come down hard on you, it's because it's coming from me, right?" And so teach that aspect of life, right? You're not always going to agree with what your boss wants you to do, right?
Yeah.
This is a horrible decision. What am I even coming out? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So I like molding that young adult. That's what's the best part about coaching.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap it up with two questions. One is, what do you want to be doing in 5 and 10 years? You want to be a police officer for the rest of your life? You want to coach for the rest of your life? Do you want to be in the school? Tell me what your plan and vision is, what you want to do.
So I'm in the point in my police career that I have to make a decision within the next few months if I want to stay as a school resource officer.
Okay.
So a detective position will be coming up, and I'll have to make the decision if I want to move to detectives or stay as the school resource officer.
That's enticing because you could get a pretty cool trench coat. As part of the detective, that's what they give you, I think.
Yeah, no, maybe back in the day, so I don't know what decision I'm going to make. I may make the decision to go to detectives, but I really think that I'm leaning towards staying as the SRO for at least another school year, right, and seeing this senior class leave.
Gotcha. Because you have an emotional investment in these.
Correct.
Kids too.
Right. So, so seeing them leave would be nice, and then there's a few more retirements that might trickle in to be able to get me to detectives next summer. So I'd love to go to detectives eventually, and I don't see myself taking rank anytime soon. I've only been off the job for 6 years, so I don't see myself taking rank for any time soon. But eventually, maybe taking a promotion as a sergeant or a lieutenant or something like that. Eventually, down the road. I'm still in school, so I may I'm gonna get my master's in criminal justice.
I didn't know this.
No, I'm in my bachelor's program.
Okay.
My plan is to ultimately get my master's, and then maybe one day finish that thought process when I was a kid of becoming a lawyer. Right. So if I get my master's in criminal justice, maybe I'll minor in law or whatever, or vice versa, or something along those lines. Because I'm sure a lot of those classes intertwine at some point. So that's that might be one of my goal, a retirement goal type thing, to become a lawyer or something to do. And but yeah, I don't plan on retiring coaching anytime soon.
So if you did a detective or a rank, you'd still coach, or still would be able to coach?
Yeah, obviously, we practice 2:30 to 3:30. I got it at 3 at the school, but I'm already there, so it's kind of like, I'm just taking my gun off and getting on the ice at that point. And so detectives is day shift. Day shift detectives are 8 to 4, so I'd have to reschedule the practice time. But I could make it work. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't leave because of work. I'd be able to figure out a practice time.
Gotcha.
And everything like that. But yeah, so I don't see myself leaving coaching anytime soon. I may try, because I'm a school committee member in West Greenwich, so I may try and take a town council position soon.
Yeah, I know you're telling
or something like
politics
that.
and stuff.
Yeah, so I might work that career. So all those types of things play a role in as to if I want to take detectives or not.
Yeah.
So.
I gotcha. Okay. And then the final question we ask everybody on, now you are not old, so I'm interested how you will answer this question, but you're 28 now. What would you tell 16-year-old Justin? What's the piece of advice in your young 28 wise years you would give him today?
So I would say hit the gym. Right?
Hit the gym, so the sit-ups.
Hit the gym.
Get the hip flexors loose.
Because obviously, once you get older, it gets a little harder. But more importantly, be confident. Right? I may not. I think a lot of people say that I'm too confident, too cocky, but deep down inside, sometimes I'm not. Right? And sometimes I question a lot of things I do. And I think being confident in yourself at a young age is huge.
Yeah.
And not questioning what you're going to do. And when you decide something, go for it. And
Kyle behind the mic, did you hear that? When you make a decision, just do it?
Yep.
Not to cut you off, but I couldn't agree more with the decision. We have, if you haven't listened, we have an episode. We have an episode on decision making, and I am so passionate about gathering information, making the decision, and just doing it. Because in life, too many times we ponder everything. You don't make a decision, and weeks, months, years go by, and nothing happens. You're like, man, if you just did it or tried it, just make the decision and do it. You're going to be better off without a doubt.
I think confidence is key in everything in life. And even if you didn't make the right decision, you got to be confident and go through with it.
Yeah,
right.
You're going to be better off because now you've learned.
And do everything you can, and just work hard.
Yeah.
Right? Always be there.
All right, I think that's a great piece of advice. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Justin, thanks for your time. Hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. Like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, John.